It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So folks, I hire someone to work for me, and I do 20% of their work. Should I get 20% of their salary? First of all, if I have to do 20% of their work, why did I hire them in the first place? All right. Today's show, folks, we're going to talk about the city of Hazleton and how it affects the entire area, our entire viewing area. We're talking about police, we're talking about cops, we're talking about protection. When you hire someone, make sure you're hiring the right person. Then let that person do their job. Okay? We've seen so often in the country today where we hire people or we elect people and they don't do what they told us they were going to do. 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, whatever, Frank DeAndrea was made the chief of police in Hazleton. And at that particular point in time, he stated what was needed in the city of Hazleton. Today we're going to talk about bottom line. How do we raise the money to get more cops? How serious it is. You all know that. When you see cops around, it's a deterrent, and that's very important. So, Chief, thanks for coming on the Sam Lesante Show.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Talking bottom line today, Frank, if I hire you as chief, before I hired you, I know when the mayor, he was here, he said he was very fortunate, very happy. He wanted to convince you first because of your experience to become Hazleton's chief of police. You came on as the chief and you saw a need for certain things. And this is what, 3.5 years ago?
Right,
okay.
3.5 years.
All right, so let's talk about when you became chief. What was your direction? What did you state that we needed in Hazleton?
The police department needed for the community to recognize them, and they needed to present the proper professional appearance that the city and the community deserved, which is the initial wave of me being a chief and changing things all had to do with making sure that our uniforms were uniform, that we had the appropriate equipment to serve the public, the right cars. We got new cars, we got weapons, we fixed a computer. We didn't even have computers that worked. We got a computer system. I put everything in place for the police department, so I was sure that we had the proper tools to serve the public. Once that was done, there was no doubt in my mind, I can't streamline anymore. We are carrying as much weight as we possibly can. And it became very clear within the first 2 or 3 months, we have nowhere near enough cops. We cannot do the job. I was getting hundreds of complaints from people who said, it's 5 months, I haven't seen the report, the cops aren't done doing this, where is, I never get a call back. And so we streamlined all of those processes, the reporting process, the complaint process, the response process, to the point where we cannot be any better. My officers are very well caught up with their reports, so they don't have reports that are overdue. They're now into a computer system. I never any longer get complaints of people saying, we didn't get a response from an officer, we weren't happy with the response of the officer, we never saw the report. That doesn't happen anymore. But what's happening now is we cannot keep up as a police department. And what I've been saying for almost 3.5 years is, we need more cops. That's the bottom line.
It seems to me that, being here and being concerned about what direction, because not only is it the city of Hazleton, but the safer we become, the entire area becomes safer. I think there's a domino effect. Okay. So now the other thing is, we talk about the great things that are happening in this area, and I mean there's some great things. The healthcare system, with Lehigh Valley Coordinated Health, I mean everyone who's been taught, we have the fabulous health system. We're trying to attract business to come into our area. We're trying to attract good people to come into our area.
Sure.
So before I come into an area, as we all know, okay, we want to survey the area, okay? How safe is the area? The school system, all that means something. Talk to people from Can-Do and they'll tell you how important that is. All right, so now I'm a little confused here because I think when I started the program saying if I'm hiring somebody, that person should do their job. My job is to see that they do what has to be accomplished. Why in the last 3.5 years have we not seen an effort, okay, to hire more cops, number one? And number two, if we are to hire more cops, how do we raise the money to hire more cops?
I can't necessarily answer the why we don't see the need, or now that we're seeing the need, where does the money come from? Because those are outside of the realm of the chief of police. I can present a budget, I could present my needs. How we fund a budget or the need becomes up the administrative chain, whether it be the mayor or the mayor and city council or the community. But the fact is, what I can answer that with is, there is no doubt there's a need. I look at this city where I've lived all of my life with my family. I love this city. I think this city has such great potential. Look how beautiful the downtown now is. I would love to attract business, but you are 100% correct. The fact is that you don't get to be big business by being stupid. And so the first thing they do when they want to relocate is they open the newspaper, or they go online and they look at statistics. And as I've stated to you, our crime statistics are staggering. They are 4 times the national average. That is not because I'm not doing my job, and it's not because the police department isn't doing their job. In the last 3.5 years, if you look at the budgets from where the budget was for the police department before I became chief and where we are now, we've reduced overtime by $150,000 a year, and we've increased our revenue by another $150,000. We are leaner and meaner, and we cannot get any better at doing what we do. We have put $300,000 a year in surplus into the city's coffers, and that's with less cops. We had, in 2011, we had 11,000 calls for service and 40 cops. In 2014, we had 34 cops, and we had 34,000 calls for service. I have 6 less cops, and we handled 3 times the amount of calls. We can no longer squeeze blood out of this rock. I'm doing my job. We're doing our job in the police department. The problem is, it's getting to the point now where we need to figure out how to get more cops.
Speaking of how to get more cops, we've talked about this before. I think it's very important that we protect the city and we show that we're a strong force, because when you see cops around, it's a deterrent, okay? I know we're going to talk about security cameras and how that has helped in a way. Now, okay, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here. It's an election year, and then right away Sam's doing this, Sam's doing that. The facts are facts, okay? If you came to me and I was sitting as a part of representing the city, and you were worth your salt, I would say, okay, you have a need here, and we have to protect the city, okay? I don't know why it's taken so long for no one has to react to this. I don't know, and I'm not placing blames, but I do know that if there's 4 times the national average for crime, that's concerning to me, because I'm concerned about safety, okay? How do we get more cops? You said you have maybe a solution to that?
Sure.
Okay, hold that thought. Folks, I'm talking to our police chief, Frank DeAndrea. Serious problem. We have 34 cops, 4 of them in training. We have close to 30,000 people, 25 to 30,000 people. I know what happens. I hear it. We're right down in downtown Hazleton. When something happens, you hear, where are the cops? Well, I think our cops are really being drained right now. Where are the cops? That's exactly right. Where are the cops? Why don't we have more cops? How many excuses are we going to have from our administration or from councilmen or whatever? And I'm not saying excuses, okay? We have a serious problem in the area. We need more police people. We need more police on the beat. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. A serious problem in the greater Hazleton area. We need more policemen. We need more policewomen, whatever. We need more cops hitting the streets. Remember, 24/7, you can watch all of our program at ssptv.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. My guest today is the Hazleton Police Chief, Frank DeAndrea. Frank, okay, so I I know how I would be running a business, or if I was, ran for office and I saw a need for safety in a city, I know what I would be doing. But of course, I'm not there, so we elect people to do these right things. What would be your solution to get more cops?
I have two solutions, and I lose sleep over this because I never like to be the person who comes to you and tells you there's a problem. I like to be the person who comes to you and says, this is what's wrong and here's how we can fix it. So here's how we could fix it. I am going to use the ugly term, the pink elephant in the room. We have got to tax something or someone. There is no other way for us to get money. First of all, on the ballot in November, there is going to be the question for the city to be able to vote that they're willing to pay a tax for 10 more cops. I think first and foremost, the city should immediately do that so that we can start to hire more officers and fill them through attrition and fill these spots. That's the immediate solution, which no one wants to hear. But the fact is that I'm here today as the chief of police telling this entire community, not only the city, the entire community that is affected by the city of Hazleton, we can no longer keep this area safe with what we have because it's becoming overwhelming. We need more police. To do that, we vote yes for the tax. And in the meantime, we collect all of these brilliant minds in this community. And I don't use the term brilliant loosely. There are some phenomenal thinkers in business, in industry, in and around this community. And we pull them all together into a room in a think tank and we say, where can we come up with a solution on how we could get more money for the city for police? Because no matter how beautiful it looks, if it's not safe, it's going to be a pretty ghost town. So my idea myself is we have a renter's tax. And this takes some follow me on this if you would please. There are approximately 5,000 rental properties in the city of Hazleton. Of those 5,000, they average 3 units of property. That's 15,000 rental units in the city of Hazleton. If each one of those units, meaning the family renting it, the name on the lease, was taxed $8 a month, that would bring, if you multiply 8 times 15,000, that's $120,000 a month. $1,440,000 a year that comes into the city. And that's simply by taxing the name on the lease. If there's 6 people in an apartment, those 6 people pay the $8, not each, per address. If it's one person and you're a bachelor, you're paying $8. It doesn't matter if your rent is $50 a month or $500 a month. The landlord collects the money. Now here's where you have to follow me. That $1,440,000, that's $1 million, 10 more cops automatically. The $440,000 that's left, we hire 6 brand new code enforcement officers full-time. The code enforcement officers are responsible for this rental property, the registration of the properties, and to be fair to the property owner. When you call me on the 15th of August and say, code enforcement, my apartment at 127 North Wyoming Street went vacant, I immediately, within 3 days, assign a new code officer to follow up. They meet with you, they inspect the apartment. If the apartment is truly vacant, you are given a grace period of the rest of that month and the following month to fill it. If you don't call us back a month and a half later and say it's still empty, you are back on the hook for your $8 a month. The landlords will be responsible for the monthly check to the police, well, not to the police department, to the city of Hazleton for the revenue due. If in fact that means that I need, out of the $440,000 a year and the 6 code enforcement officers, to hire another clerk in code enforcement to take care of the tracking of this billing, there is more than enough money left to do that. If we say, well, but only 75 or 80% of these properties are going to be filled at the same time. The code enforcement officers and that clerk are only costing the city $250,000 a year. There's an extra almost half or $250,000. There's an extra $200,000 that is the slush fund, that is the leeway of saying, well, we're only going to have 80 or 85% of these properties full, so that the city will not be out the money or waiting for money to come in that's not going to come in. That means that you get 10 more cops on the street and 6 more code enforcement officers.
And that's without even them voting for the tax increase.
That's correct.
Okay.
But that's what I would call the next solution. If that solution works and the revenue comes in, then perhaps we can lessen the tax on the property.
So what you're saying to me is, like, when we have meetings, we need creative vision. Okay, so this creative vision that you came up with, okay, I'm sure you just didn't pull it out of the sky. What research did you do to come up with this creative decision? Because when you look at $8 a person, a unit, really it doesn't seem to be a lot of money, but when you add it all up, it really does wonders for us, okay? And I would think that I would want the city safe, many reasons. If I have an apartment, I have to rent the apartment, so I want people to come into my apartment, okay?
Well, you ask what research I do. The research, I hate to say, is simple, but it's just stepping out of the box for a second. I live in the city. My parents live in the city. My family lives in the city. My friends live in the city. I'm a property owner. I'm a taxpayer. I recognize that taxes increase and increase. And so listening to the community saying, we can't afford to pay, for 20 more cops, we can't afford this. I'm trying to figure out a solution where the money can possibly come from that isn't going to all be the burden of the property owner. This is one simple solution that immediately comes to my mind, and I recognize there might be some kinks that would be worked out. The $8 is simply based on 15,000 times what we need to make to hire 10 cops and 6 code enforcement officers to enforce the rental registration. If somebody said, no, $8 isn't going to work, it can only be 7, then it's 7. If somebody says we need 10, at the end of the day, it's the renters living in the city that they pay $20 a year to live in the city of Hazleton. They use our water, they use our sewers, they use our streets, they use our fire department, and they use our police department. They tax the infrastructure themselves by being here, and yet they are not being taxed in return. And I look at it and say, there's one resource for the city to get revenue. Do I think that'll be the total solution? Absolutely not. But it will certainly get us 10 more cops. If that means that we use the tax increase on the property to get 10 cops immediately, we use the rental registration and put that in place to get 10 more cops to bring us to 20, and then we bring in this think tank to say, okay, now, how could we raise money and what can we do to lessen the property owner tax and make that tax go away and still have the 20 cops? In a 3-year plan, we could be back up to 60 cops. There is no doubt in my mind. We just need to work together.
Folks, we're listening to Frank DeAndrea, who's our police chief in Hazleton. We try to come up with solutions, try to come up with creative ideas, and hopefully and pray to God that we put the politics aside. You see what's happening in the nation today. Not that I'm supporting anyone, but why is Trump so very popular today? Because he's saying, look, we got to talk facts here. We've been listening to political nonsense for so many years. This is what I have accomplished. This is what we're going to do. And so we need creative ideas. We need to move forward. We have a lot of people in this area who are invested a lot of money in the greater Hazleton area, in Hazleton itself. So we're looking for the betterment. We have a great town here, we really do. That's why the Lesante family made the investment we did. The Angelos made the investment, Hayden's made the investment, all of the people that have been here with their businesses. And I don't mean to exclude anyone, but the point is that we have faith in this town. Now we need creative thinking. Can we put the politics aside? We'll be back right after this. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You're watching the Sam Lesante Show. Thank you so much, folks, for the tremendous response we're getting from the show, bringing as much information to you as possible. Today we're talking about a very, very serious problem. We need more cops in the city of Hazleton. The chief, Frank DeAndrea, here has some solutions or an opportunity to... have you voiced your proposal to City Council?
We're doing it right now.
You are?
I believe that through this show also, and I've been have mentioned many times to include at public meetings my thoughts on where we can get money. But my solution is not the be-all, end-all. My solution is to start. The fact is, it is not easy for a chief of police, it's not easy for a cop to look to anyone and ask for help. Your worst nightmare, you solve your nightmare by dialing 911. Your nightmare ends when the cops show up. We are not in the business of asking for help, and it's not easy. And we are now to the point where we are looking to the community saying, we will never abandon you. We will not leave, and we are here for you. And if that means we are going to get hurt or we are going to die, we will die trying, because that's our job. And you don't have a person in my union saying, we give up, we quit, we're walking away. It's not happening. But what we are doing is saying, please help us help you.
When my father passed, he left me a letter, and on top of the letter he wrote, "Don't panic." And then he listed a number of things and what he thought I should be doing, and most of them I did. And I think right now, I don't think we should panic. No, I think what we should do is look at how we can get better, all right? And God, if we could only put our politics aside and look at what is right. Okay, in business you have to do that, hence why Trump is worth $10 billion. Right. He has to sit down with people he doesn't like, but the point is what's better for the community. Our community, you mentioned about elderly people here who, the poor city, it's never. Well, there's a reason. If you have more cops, it's a deterrent. Once again, Frank, what would be your vision, and we got about 2 minutes left, what would be your vision for Hazleton?
Everyone who knows me knows I am always up for a challenge. I do not back down from a fight. I have had a phenomenal career in law enforcement. I've received awards and accolades. The greatest award I have ever received was being the chief of the Hazleton Police Department. I am proud to be the chief, and I have never been as proud of anyone as I am of the men and women of the Hazleton Police Department. And based on that, what I can say is, I think that I have been able to show the community we can turn a police department around. We are so incredibly efficient. We truly look the part of the professional organization that the city and the community deserves. And we have officers that I would pit against any officer in the state and or the federal government with the job that they do in patrol, in detectives, in narcotics, bar none. My money would be on them. At the same time, I recognize if you think that we are doing a good job or have turned this ship around with 34 cops, you cannot imagine. Yeah, you give me more cops and look out. We will have a waiting list for people wanting to come into the city of Hazleton.
I mentioned about security cameras, and I don't want to get in detail, but we have security cameras in the city, okay?
We just solved a burglary using the new surveillance system. They're working phenomenally.
Frank, there's one word that has caused so much chaos and trouble in the world. It's called ego. And when you put your ego involved instead of your logic, and that happens with a lot of people, including politicians, they put their ego in. And I'm not going to do this because Frank's going to get credit. I'm not going to do this because Sam Lesant's going to get credit. Or I'm going to. And that's the sickness that we have with egos. And I got to tell you, you want to talk about police protection? You can't beat the Pennsylvania State Police. You can't beat the cops that we have in this area: Sugarloaf, Cunningham, Freeland, McAdoo. I don't want to miss anybody. Hazleton. I mean, the state cops are fabulous, okay? And I applaud any person who puts a uniform on today, because they're going to protect my grandchildren. They're going to protect us, and they don't care what you said. When their call's there, they're there. And if they got shot, okay, you've seen so many of that in your field. So I applaud them. I really do. And I think we as citizens should support you guys as much as we possibly can. And folks, it's a simple matter. I think the chief comes up with some good solutions here. All I can say is keep the good work up.
You have no fear. You call, we will be there.
Frank DeAndrea, folks, Chief of Police. We're going to have him come on periodically and give it an update. But if you have suggestions as to how we can create more cops, he's open for them. We'll see you next time.